Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest episode of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Nate and Aaron, the brothers Maxon, with you. Hey, Aaron.
Hello.
We're hoping everybody had a hello. Robin Williams. Hello.
Hello. It was a run by fruiting.
It was a run by fruiting. I hope everybody had a great holiday. Glad that's over. We're back in the swing of things here at the WNR Podcast Network. Doing the We Can't Wrestle podcast here. We'll have another edition of Reliving the Extreme soon, and hopefully be back on track with our shows now. Plus, in the midst of everything, I had like a super stupid cold too. So sorry you haven't got to hear our wonderful voices in a couple of weeks, but we're back, and we're back doing the 1995 PWI 500 once again. As we're rolling through this, we're in the top 200, and we ended last week with Wolfie D at number 175. And let's see, number 174 in the PWI 500 from 1995. Heavy Metal, 5'7", 187 years pro, comes from a great wrestling family, the younger brother of Negro Casas and son of Pepe Casas. Pepe Casas resembles rock star John Bon Jovi, considered a heartthrob by female fans. Fan support has helped him make some amazing comebacks. Hopes to compete in Japan and the United States this year.
He made it by 97, at least, to the WWF.
The AAA. The AAA thing in WWF was funny because I love how like they only had two entrance musics, one for the good guys and one for the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like everybody came out to either that boo-doo-doo-doo-doo, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, or that
like what I saw of Heavy Metal and like the stuff I've seen of him, he was good.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, to me, overall, I found him to be a little generic, but he had some decent moves and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was good. You're right. And nothing to me personally with Lucha, nothing to be like super excited about, but he wasn't awful. Let's put it that way.
It would have been better if they were like second generation wrestler, his brother Yacht or his father Yacht Rock. His older brother Easy Listening.
Yeah. Number 173, the Blue Panther, 5'5", 205, 17 years pro, considered one of Mexico's premier technical wrestlers, noted for knowing more submission holds than anyone in the country, has been called the Mexican Dory Funk Jr. Now in a battle with Octagon, both hated and loved by the fans at various junctures in their career.
So boring.
I was going to say, and you may remember his brother, the Pink Panther. Ba-dum.
He's crazy, so he's all right.
Cheeseburger. Yeah, Blue Panther. He's another one he's fine. 172. We're continuing south of the border here with Mil Mascaras, 5'11", 245, 31 years pro, the most famous Mexican wrestler in history. Name means man of 1,000 masks. Still wrestles frequently in both Mexico and Japan using his famed flying body press. Most recent tour of Japan saw him team in a 6-man tag team bouts with Bob Backlund and Jimmy Snuka as partners.
I think anybody that's listened to our shows in the past knows my stance on Mil Mascaras. I understand the whole regional thing or countrywide thing or whatever, but
yeah, in his country, you can't deny his legend. You can't deny how over he was. But as even me watching him, I think it's one of those things where the mystique was I'm not saying he was as bad in the ring as the Ultimate Warrior, but it's like the mystique was, you know what I mean? It was more of a mystique thing, the talent thing.
Yeah.
And I also can't say that I've seen Mil Mascaras in the 1970s in Mexico either. Maybe he was a completely different, you know what I mean? Maybe he was fucking amazing. I don't know because I haven't seen it.
I mean,
But
I'll give the cat his due that like he did his he sold his gimmick. You know what I mean? I'll give him that.
yeah,
But I don't know. I've never seen anything I've ever seen of that guy. I'm just like, eh, kind of butt.
no yob.
He doesn't do it for me. Got a booty.
Number 171, Virgil. 5'11", 230, 10 years pro, wrestling in various independent promotions all across the United States. Briefly returned to the WWF to feud with Nikolai Volkov, who had succeeded him as Ted DiBiase's lackey. Excellent hand speed, always very determined. Never underestimate him. Oh, Mike Jones.
Not the best wrestler in the world, obviously. But the older I got, the more I thought about it, and the more you learn about it, and like watching shoot interviews and this, that, and the other thing of him,
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost if they would have let Mike Jones just be Mike Jones, it might have been better for him. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, just let the guy be his personality,
Mm-hmm. And also, to like you said, not the greatest wrestler in the world, but I'll give him two things. Actually, I'm going to give him three things. I'm actually going to give him three things here. Firstly, the role he was given as the bodyguard for the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, he always did good in that role. He took the bumps he needed to take. Yeah, he took the bumps he needed to take. He played the role perfectly in the background, looking shifty, counting the money. And when they did finally break him free from DiBiase, firstly, in that feud with DiBiase, at least at first, through the WrestleMania match, he was over. And he wasn't a shitty wrestler. Like, he was a serviceable mid-card wrestler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I mean, to me, everything he did, at least WWF wise, I never had a problem with Virgil. And then WCW, right now we're talking about 95, so he isn't in WCW yet, but WCW is, I mean, he just pretty much played the same role, but with a black t-shirt on. But yeah, like you said, he's not going to be a guy that I'm ever going to put probably even in a Hall of Fame or anything, but he wasn't awful.
Yeah. I always thought like that minute that he was in TNA, or not TNA, in AEW, I thought they missed the ball with not calling him Paul.
Yeah. Number 170 is Kamala 2, 6 foot 230, 8 years pro, a carbon copy of the original
Botswana Beast.
Botswana Beast. Wrestles mostly for All Japan, steady tag team partner of Abdullah the Butcher. Current feud is against Dan Crawford and Doug Furness. Also competes as Botswana Beast in Georgia Independence. Finisher is a flying splash. What's funny about him is, like, you know how like you go into a room and you're like, nothing's been touched, but clearly everything's been touched. That's what it is when you see him as Kamala. You're like, it's not Kamala, but somehow it is Kamala.
It's like somebody put Kamala in the dryer.
Yeah, he's just a little smaller and rounder, round, kind of roundish, more than fat.
It's like, who dressed Mo up like Kamala? What's going on?
I haven't honestly. I haven't seen enough of him wrestle to even. I mean, I've seen maybe a couple of matches with him wrestling,
and one of the main reasons it doesn't bother me about Kamala 2 is that Kamala didn't have a problem with it.
Kamala even teamed with him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, if the guy gives the guy the go ahead, that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if what I'm saying makes
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you just totally rip a guy off, fuck you. Think of something else. But yeah, if Kamala 1 was cool with Kamala 2, I'm cool with it.
Number 169 is Robert Gibson, 5'11", 225, 18 years pro. Rock and Roll Express star has had a solid solo career. Won the SMW tag titles with Ricky Morton numerous times, but lost them most recently to Al Snow and Unabomb. recovered from reconstructive knee surgery, looking for a new regular partner now that Morton has left SMW to compete in other Tennessee promotions. Old Hoot.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about it a couple times, meeting them at that convention or whatever. They were super fun there, but
Mm-hmm.
just wrestling wise or whatever, I mean, he's somewhat, I shouldn't say somewhat, he's like really overshadowed in the team by Ricky, but Robert was kind of I mean, and I know other people have said it, but it's like Robert was essential to that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was even singles wise, like he wasn't a big star singles wise, but like even when he was by himself in Smoky Mountain for a little bit, like he was good there. And yeah, I don't have any negative things to say about Robert Gibson.
Nope. I think obviously the Rock and Rolls are one of my top 5 favorite tag teams of all time. Obviously, I like them both better when they're in the team than when they're doing singles. But they were both good as singles as well. And Robert was really good, and probably the only thing that I would say, the only hole in Robert Gibson's game that I would say is the promo.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
he
coming
wasn't
down.
the best.
We're coming on down there, man. We're coming down. We're gonna do the thing, man.
Yeah, he wasn't the best talker in the world, but I mean,
Like,
Robert
and
could
I
be.
mean, maybe he was better than I thought he was, but he's just like, it's always like he's cutting a promo right next to Ricky Morton. You know what I mean? And Ricky
Yeah,
Morton's got the fucking shit going on, and he's
yeah. I
anyway.
mean, anybody that's standing next to Ricky Morton, you're just gonna be the second banana. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? But it,
kind of like that's where Bobby Eaton was smart. Bobby Eaton was like, I'm standing next to Jim Cornette, Dennis Condrey, or Jim Cornette, Stan Lane. I'm just not gonna fucking talk at all.
yeah,
Well, I don't need
and
to talk.
yeah, and Robert needed to talk, but like, how do I say it? Like, and I'm not trying to say anything because Ricky Morton obviously is great, but like, would Ricky Morton in the '80s would he have been as over or whatever without somebody like Robert with him? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it was kind of like that Rock and Roll Express thing. Like we all talk about Ricky, but Ricky wouldn't have worked with anybody but Robert, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. I
So yeah, I
agree.
mean you need that guy. Like this might be a stupid analogy, but would of the early Marx Brothers movies has worked us so much if Zeppo wouldn't have been there. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
You need a Zeppo,
Mm-hmm.
and if that makes sense. But
Up next, we have a guy who was in a tag team that had no Zeppo and no Groucho. It was all pretty much Harpo. It was the next guy we talked about. His partner last week at the end of the show, 168, is Jamie Dundee, 5'8", 195, known as JC Ice and tag team PG-13 with partner Wolfie D. Held the USWA tag team strap several times. Son of the legendary Bill Dundee, with whom he sometimes teams. Lost to Miss Texas a few years ago. Jamie
I dig
Dundee,
I
crazy
dig
motherfucker.
PG-13. Yeah, I dig PG-13. He was one of the first um he was like one of the first when they started putting like interviews on the internet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the first ones where wrestling fans were like, "You gotta see this shit." It was like him and the Honky Tonk Man, you know what I mean? They were
And
kind of
Iron
the
Sheik,
first,
yeah.
and Iron Sheik. They were the holy shit, this motherfucker's crazy. And part of it was like, he was saying shit that he wanted the people paying him to hear or whatever.
Right.
But he was still fucking crazy, and I believe he's insane, you know? So, but not talking about that, talking about at this point, they were a good little fucking heel tag
Yeah.
team, and I had no problem with them at all.
167 is Scott Armstrong, 6'1", 214, 12 years pro. Still teams with brother Steve on occasion in various independents. Has a great super kick. Small but good technically. Has improved his aerial skills.
Good worker.
Good worker.
I think he lost some of the. I don't think he had some of the charisma of like his. And I say this because Brad didn't really have on-air charisma, but like Brad still had charisma in the ring. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I think Scott was like, and I hate to say it because all the Armstrongs are good, but I think he was the least of the Armstrongs, if that makes sense.
We've discussed every time we've talked about any of them that, you know, all of them got something from their dad. And in build, look, and style, Scott was the most like his dad. You know what I mean? Brad was a little more Brad's
Brad was built like a motherfucker. You know, like Brad,
and,
if you were gonna draw a wrestler, Brad was the wrestler.
Right. Well, I was just saying Brad's in-ring style was a little more flashy than his dad and Scott, and then Brian obviously got the fucking promo charisma to the nth degree. But yeah, Scott, I think was if you really break it down, was the most like his dad in most respects.
Yeah, like build and look, yeah. But like his dad was really charismatic too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Brad Scott just he was a fundamentally solid wrestler. Like I enjoyed him as like he did that Dixie Dynamite stuff in Smoky Mountain, and it was kind of hokey, but he still was serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
But I like if I had to compare him to another like family of wrestlers, I think he's kind of like Keith because I've watched like old Stampede stuff or whatever, and Keith Hart was a good wrestler, you know,
Yeah.
but he just didn't have the pizzazz or the it factor of his other brothers, you know. It's like and I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but I think Scott was good, but I think if you had to rank the Armstrong family, I don't want to say anything bad, but because being the last on that list of guys is still better than a lot of other people, you know.
Yep. And he had a hell of a run as a referee.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was in the WWE for it wasn't 20 years, but if it wasn't 20 years, it was damn close to 20. Let's see.
I was going to ask if he's still there.
No, he left I think he left in like 2022. Let me look. I just want to look just to because it wouldn't have been 20 years because it could have been 2002. WCW was closed by then. 2006 to 2022. So what, 16 years?
Yeah.
All right, 166. Axel Rotten, 6'2", 302, 7 years pro. Spent most of the year in the brutal bloody feud with brother Ian in ECW, whom he battered with a wide array of dangerous foreign objects, including a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. Recently departed ECW for somewhat calmer USWA. Tried to wrestle a technical match against Cactus Jack once this summer, but it quickly turned bloody. On the flip side of Ian, we always shit on Ian, rightfully so. Axel, I like Axel Rotten.
I like Axel Rotten as well.
I gotta say, it always makes me laugh. It always makes me laugh when I watch GWF because, like, he hadn't like fully slimmed into what his wrestling shape was going to be. So he was really fat and round with that poofy poodle hair.
He looked like a sheep. No,
Yeah,
Axel
Axel.
was.
He's one of those guys, literally, that I think of when I think of ECW. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he was a serviceable guy. He never did anything where I watched it and I'm like, yeah, that's other than maybe some of the stuff he did with Ian. I was like, I never, and even that hardcore shit, it was like, okay, it that was what it was supposed to be. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like, I can say the only time I enjoyed Ian Rotten was when he feuded with Axel Rotten.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I got no qualms with that guy. I mean, him and like later on, him and Balls were fun together, and yeah, I got nothing. And he was actually a pretty decent promo.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't already listen to Reliving the Extreme, our other podcast that we do with Chad Austin, listen to that show. You will hear, because Chad and Axel were buddies, so you'll hear lots of great Axel Rotten stories on Reliving the Extreme. 165, Terry Bam Bam Gordy, 6'4", 289, 15 years pro. Bam Bam has wrestled all over the world and has held numerous titles during his travels. 1/3 of the original Freebirds, now in Smoky Mountain, but still makes frequent trips to Japan. Big Brutal Brawler is still very hard to beat. Has formed a tag team with former enemy Tommy Rich. By 1990,
95, he's doing more in Japan than I would say he's doing in Smoky Mountain, but
yeah. There's there's many Terry Gordys. You know what I mean? Like, but here's my question for you. If Chad was here, I'd ask him too. What is your Terry Gordy of choice? Is it like early to mid 80s Freebirds Terry Gordy? Is it Gordy and Williams Terry Gordy?
I'm not gonna say that, and you know this when I say it. I was a big fan of Gordy and Williams together or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but to me, it's that it's Terry Gordy when he's with Mike and Buddy,
Mm-hmm.
like Mid South World Class Championship. Terry Gordy. That's peak Gordy, obviously, in my opinion.
I
And watching
agree.
this shit
I
and
agree.
watching this shit in Japan and everything like that. That's him.
Like, yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, probably like 80, 83, 84 Terry Gordy. Freebirds Terry
Like
Gordy is probably.
I really wish they wouldn't have fucked up when they got to Vince.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been fun to see what they imagine, like a stable with like the Freebirds and David Schultz.
Yeah, and yeah, that would have been great. And or the Freebirds with like Roddy Piper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know, but like I think if they wouldn't have fucked up and gotten fired, like I think there might be a few guys and you could pick a couple if you want, but there's a few guys I think maybe wouldn't have had the big run they had up there, or not as big of a run as they had up there if Terry Gordy would have, if the Freebirds
Well,
wouldn't have fucked around
uh,
and got
uh,
fired.
I think I can say with certainty that had they not fucked up and got fired, that Volkov and Sheik probably never would have been the tag team champions,
You
because
know,
the Freebirds probably would have walked out of the first WrestleMania as tag team champions. That fucking telegraphs itself.
yeah, like I don't like I know they brought them in as babies, but I don't think they would have. I don't think they would
Yeah,
have.
they wouldn't have stayed, baby. No, can you
Yeah,
like
I don't
imagine?
think that. I think it was kind of like they brought him in like that just with the idea of they're gonna turn him, you know.
And just with their all shucks babyface personalities versus the Freebirds. Imagine a Freebirds versus Rotunda and Wyndham feud, and
Yeah,
then roll into a Freebirds and the British Bulldogs feud.
yeah,
Shit would have been
with
popping.
like yeah, and not even necessarily like when I'm thinking like Gordy, like I'm thinking if you put these guys at that time in front of Vince McMahon, you know, I think he sees, oh, Mike Hayes and Buddy, you know, they're whatever. He's got to be looking at Terry Gordy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Terry
And
Gordy at that time is an ideal Hulk Hogan opponent.
that's what I was gonna. That's where I was getting at. I thought maybe you'd bring the guy up, but you didn't. So you can tell me if I'm wrong. But like Hogan versus Terry Gordy in a cage, WrestleMania 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, would Bundy have gotten to where he got
No,
if it wouldn't have
no.
been there? You know what I mean?
Not at Bundy would have still worked with Hogan, but not at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
You know,
I just,
Bundy would have been like a summertime feud or something. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's like that. There's a lot of what ifs, or I wish this wouldn't have happened, or whatever in wrestling, which might be a fun podcast topic for later on. But it's like, man, what if they wouldn't have went in and fucked it up?
Mm-hmm.
What could that have been?
Number 164, Bastion Booger. 6'4", 404, 16 years pro, revolting ex-WWF stars now making people sick in the Midwest independent circuit. Obese Brawler has formed an unlikely team with Scott D'Amore. Also occasionally wrestles in the NWA and other mid-Atlantic independents. So the best thing about the Bastion Booger gimmick was pretty much the reason that it was created, to please one man, with like a lot of those gimmicks. The best thing about that gimmick is Vince McMahon. Anytime Bastion Booger was wrestling on commentary, look at this Bastion Booger. Look at the adipose tissue. Look at the hump. He's got the hump. Like Vince McMahon just being totally revolted by Bastion
Yeah,
Booger.
and I know you like Mike Shaw. I know you do, and we've had the arguments like, oh, when he was mucking saying it's like, I was never a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't get. I hated Norman the Lunatic and Norman the Trucker and all that shit. I'm not a fan of the guy, and I don't like anything about him at all.
He oh crap.
It's one of my favorite Pat Patterson stories with Bastion Booger.
I don't know if I know it.
He said Mike Shaw stopped him in the hallway and was like, I think I should be doing more. What can I do to improve my, you know, um, stock in the company?
Mm-hmm.
And Pat was like, you got to go to Vince. Like at the end of the day, he's the guy. He's the boss.
Mm-hmm.
State your case to Vince. Say what you need to say. And then he saw fucking Mike Shaw like 4 hours later and was like, "Hey, did you talk to Vince?" Yeah, because he said he saw him kind of sitting on a bench. I was like, "Yeah, I talked to Vince." And Pat was like, "Well, how'd that go?" And he's like, "Yeah, he said we don't have anything for you. We're just gonna have to let you go. He fired me." And Pat was like, "I felt like shit. Like I told the guy go talk to Vince. He'll
He
help
got
you out."
fired.
He got fired. It's like, oh shit, that is not what I expected to have.
It's funny because
He's
one of
like,
the
Mike. He said Mike might have had another 5 months or whatever. Man. He's like, we got to finish yet, buddy.
sorry, Mike. It's kind of funny, like so the when they say someone is a mesomorph or the mesomorphic, that's like a Lex Luger type, like a bodybuilder or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the opposite of that, in science or whatever, however they describe the human body, the complete opposite of a mesomorph is an endomorph. Like, short, fat, bald, whatever. And it's funny because there is a Superstars where Vince McMahon in one match he talks about because Lex Luger wrestles you like Lex Luger, the ultimate mesomorphic talent in the World Wrestling Federation. And then the next match is Bastion Booger, and he's like, Bastion Booger, the ultimate endomorphic talent in the world wrestling. Just Vince enjoyed just fucking cracking on
ridiculing
Mike.
Mike
Yeah,
Shaw.
he fucking loved it. This big,
That guy's
fat,
a piece of shit,
disgusting.
but
What's that? What's that smell? It's Bastion Booger.
I
Vince's
wish he
humor.
wouldn't have turned out. I wish he wouldn't have turned out to be such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Did you watch? Sorry, not to get sidetracked. Talking about Vince. Have you watched the XFL documentary that's on Netflix yet?
No.
It's good. You should watch it. It's only like an hour and 17 minutes, and it was made right before. It was made right at the. You can tell it was made right at around the same time they did the McMahon documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dick Ebersol is like, "Oh, Vince is my best partner ever," and he's like happy with him, and they end up eating dinner at the end of it. And I'm like, "Oh, this didn't happen before, or this happened right before that happened. Because if it would have been after, that would have never happened." But no, it's actually a good documentary.
I'll check it out. Up until you just said something I didn't know it existed, to be honest with you. So
I didn't know it existed either, but I was on Netflix. I'm like, let's see, and they have a bunch of different little things that are going to be not like network type shows that are going to be available on the first. There are different shows they're going to have on there, and it's just I stumbled upon it because I was looking for something. I'm like, oh, I want to watch this. Yeah, it's a good little documentary. I enjoyed it.
Let's see here. Number 163 in the 1995 PWI 500 is Stevie Richards, 6'2", 225, 3 years pro, currently one half of the ECW Tag Team Champions with Raven, involved in a weird feud with Tommy Dreamer and Luna Vachon, claims to be the master of the super kick. He tossed out all his scientific training and prefers rule breaking, lost by submission to Luna in a steel cage match.
Yeah. I know you and Chad are a big fan of Stevie, but I like Stevie.
I see Stevie's role. Okay, I like Stevie when he is Raven's lackey. Other than that, I don't really have any time for Stevie Richards. Like when in the WWF, when he was in the WWF, I wasn't a big fan of whatever he did there most of the time.
I liked him with Victoria. That was fun. Where he was like almost like the valet, and he was the.
I guess I forgot. I completely forgot about that. But yeah.
like he was doing like the. Like she'd come out and like to that cool ass song that I can't even remember who sung it. Was it an Evanescence song?
I don't think so, but it was a band very
Like that
similar
song
to
was
Evanescence.
like all the things you say, all the things you
Yeah.
say. Like that was a good fucking theme song, and like she'd come out and it was almost like Sean and Sherry together, but Victoria
Stevie
was
was
Sean
Sherry.
and Stevie was Sherry. That was fun. I didn't mind like the initial RTC stuff, and I know we're talking about '95, but yeah, I don't mind Stevie. I thought he always did pretty good with whatever he was given.
And yeah, like I said, I enjoy him in ECW. Like I like Stevie and with Raven. I like some of the there's some of the BWO stuff I'm not a big fan of, but I like some of the BWO stuff. So I can't say like I don't totally dislike him like it seems Chad does. But most of what I like about Stevie Richards took place in ECW.
BWO turned for me when they started making it be when they made him serious. You know what I mean? like we're gonna get there on Reliving the Extreme, but like by the time we get to the pay-per-view, it's like if you're gonna put him in that main event spot, don't put him in the BWO thing.
PW, right?
You know, just make him Stevie. But
Number 162, Typhoon, 6'7", 384, 11 years pro. After a brief run in the WWF, he's back on the independent circuit. Earthquake's partner in the Natural Disasters, former WWF World Tag Team Champions, has also competed as U.S. Steel, Big Steel Man, Tugboat, and Shockmaster. And before we talk about him in particular, I like Uncle Fred. But the funny thing about 94, 93, 94, and 95 is the Natural Disasters were never in the company at the same time. Like Earthquake makes a comeback and then he leaves, so then Tugboat comes back and then Tugboat leaves, Earthquake makes a comeback. Like they it's like that team
was just replacing him.
Yeah, with each other.
Replacing each other with each other. Yeah, and Fred Otterman was actually, for a big dude, he wasn't a bad worker.
No, not at all. No. Like you watch him even like the when he's Tugboat. I mean, honestly I don't think I've ever even seen him as US Steel or whatever when he was in Florida other than a magazine. I've never seen it. But that dude I mean, he's like the widest fat guy ever. He's so wide. You know what I mean? And that dude could move for how wide he was.
Yeah, and his WCW stuff is bad, but it's not his fault.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll say this till the day I die. I don't advocate for Chic Tugboat, but I think it's a bummer that he never got his heel run against Hogan.
Yeah.
You know, because they were hinting toward him turning on Hogan. There was like a battle royal in the Saturday Night's Main Event where he was going to turn, but then they started doing the slaughter thing, so it kind of got turned to the wayside. So then they just turned him heel by teaming him up with Earthquake, which was fine. The Natural Disasters were fine, but it's kind of a bummer that Tugboat never got his run against Hogan.
Yeah, but it's also like, this might sound dumb, I don't know, but like Earthquake to me, and I know like other guys that knew him and everything said when he got turned face, he was really happy about it because he was just a nice guy, you know, and was finally able to be like nice to the fans and the kids and all that shit. But like when you look at John Tenta at that time, it's like this guy looks like a heel. You know what I mean? But like when I look at like Fred Otterman, like I look at the guy, I'm like, this guy doesn't look like a bad guy to me.
I have a listen. I have
even though he's a big dude, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like his face, like in his face, or whatever, he's like a nice guy.
I have a picture. It's actually what it is you know how in the Survivor Series when they used to show the people, they'd show like they'd have the little square of one tag team and a little square of the picture of the other tag team that would come together as a team. It's actually, I think, the picture of them from Survivor Series 92. But like whichever one, they're a baby face. I think it's 92. And it's like this picture of John Tenta and Fred Ottman, and they're like big. They're just like these big fat furry guys that are smiling. And I actually I keep that picture on my phone because in like wrestling groups and stuff, if I think something's cool, I'll put that picture up and I'll be like, the Happy Natural Disasters approve of this.
Yeah. And it was, that's just what I'm saying. It's like, and to me, Otterman just never looked like a bad guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it was funny when he was in WCW after he fell down, they gave him like Day Tripper as his theme song. That was funny.
Number one.
Some of my favorite Dusty Rhodes things. Obviously, because that didn't happen live. So he said he was watching it at home and fucking Fred blew through the fucking wall and he said, Cody looked at me and was like, was that Uncle Fred? That was Uncle Fred. Yeah, that was Uncle Fred. Go ahead, sorry.
Number 160 is Dave Sullivan, 6'3", 250, 4 years pro, currently feuding with Diamond Dallas Page and not doing well. Has dated the Diamond Doll several times. Kevin Sullivan's dyslexic brother became the ultimate Hulk Hogan groupie Formerly the Equalizer, starred in Pacific Northwest then Japan.
Always sucked. It was never good.
Yeah,
Didn't
not
even
a
like it as the Equalizer. That
not
guy
not
was
a
fucking garbage.
not a fan. Not a fan of Dave Sullivan.
Sorry.
Not a fan. I don't know.
And that's Dave Sullivan. Oh, he's Evad. It's like just because he's dyslexic doesn't mean he doesn't know how to say his fucking name.
Yeah, that's always bothered me. It's always bothered me. 159 is Eli Blue.
Like if I was dyslexic, I would be like, "Hello, my name is Nora." He's so fucking stupid. Go
Hello,
ahead.
I am
Was it?
Etan. I am Etan.
I am Etan.
159 is Eli Blue, no longer a Bruise brother, with twin brother Don Jacob Blue Harris. Both are now in the WWF. Former Pacific Northwest champion, former Smoky Mountain Tag Team champion. Style is reminiscent of Bruiser Brody. Like I mentioned last week when we talked about Dutch Mantel, I like the act of Uncle Zeb and the Blue Brothers. It's probably my favorite iteration of the Bruise Brothers, actually.
Yeah. I thought Cornette did good with him for what he had, but all around, at the end of the day, I got no time for the fucking Blues Brothers or fucking any of them. I put them in the same fucking group with
I know it's
Evad.
I know it's silly. I know it's silly and it's gimmicky and stuff, but I don't know. I got a kick out of them, like looking into the camera, like what is that? What is that? Like when Uncle Zeb first brought him in or whatever, and then the story kind of, if you watch their progression, is they kind of get used to the technology and stuff. Like when they first come in, it's like he's taking them down from the Appalachians, and they don't quite know what's going on. They just know they're scuffling and shit, and it's I know it's gimmicky. But, and that's the other thing too. I was thinking about this. I don't know what was making me think about it the other day, but like the people that the people that want to get on their soapbox about how Vince McMahon made wrestling cartoony and ruined their wrestling. Then I'm like, but then I listen to shit like podcasts where they talk about the scuffling hillbillies, or there was the guy that wrestled as the Batman, or Uncle Frank. It's like, yeah, Vince McMahon was the first one to ever, like, not do wrestling serious.
Yeah.
Fucking
it's just watch Jerry Lawler's fucking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like Andy Kaufman wanted to come in, and they were like, you won't work up there. Like Bill Atner was like, they ain't gonna take you serious there. Go work for Lawler. He's fucking crazy.
Like I said, though, in the fucking 60s, they had the Batman, the Mummy. They had a wrestling mummy, the fucking wrestling bear. Like, yeah, Vince McMahon, he did wrestling in. He did too much goofy stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like, fuck off. Fucking Gorgeous George has one of my favorite gimmicks ever. Where he had to get oxygen between fucking matches, and it said Florida Air. Like he took air from Florida, and you know what I mean? Like that's a fucking gimmick.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. He got oxygen from Florida into his little machine and took it there, and that's how he got heat, was going to like California or New York or whatever.
It's one of the great.
Hold on, I need Florida air.
It's one of the greatest things.
Great little gimmick.
It's one of the greatest things to watch. Watch Gorgeous George in the ring and say it, and I've seen enough.
Get your dirty hands off me.
Yes, he's get your filthy hands off me, and all those guys out in that audience like, you faggot, like just I don't know, just that dude. Like he would register that crowd there wasn't a lot of heat in that building.
Get your filthy hands.
Get your filthy hand. Or when he'd take his good old time taking his bobby pins out of his hair, and they're like, "Get to wrestling." Dude knew heat, man. He knew fucking heat.
Yeah.
158 is Vic Steamboat, 6'1", 243, 9 years pro, current Century Wrestling Alliance heavyweight champion, great scientific wrestler in the style of his older brother Rick, excellent flying body press. Old Vic Steamboat.
Not Rick's brother.
I think he is Rick's brother. I think he actually is legitimately.
No, he is not. He is not.
Come on, come on.
He is not. Ricky Steamboat isn't even actually a steamboat.
Son of Sam.
It is not a thing.
Yes, he is. I just looked it up.
No. Bullshit.
His name is Victor Hersey Blood, an American retired professional wrestler, best known by his ring name Vic Steamboat. He is the younger brother of professional wrestler Ricky Steamboat. So he actually is Ricky Steamboat's brother. Anyway.
I don't believe that at all. That's okay. I don't believe it.
Number 157 is Ken Shamrock. A major wrestling star in Japan even before he started competing in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. First Japan recognized Pancrase heavyweight champion. Recognized as current UFC champion after defeating Dan Severn. So at this point, Kenny's not really doing pro wrestling. He's in the UFC, but still ranked somehow in this PWI 500.
He dabbled in pro wrestling, like.
Well, I mean, I know he did pro wrestling before he did UFC. I know that, but at this point, I think he's mainly just doing the Ultimate Fighting stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put him in. I'll give you the Vic Steamboat thing. I've looked a couple things up.
I was pretty sure I was right, but I was like, maybe Aaron's right. I'm gonna look it up and see.
Okay.
Because the reason I thought I was right was because I remember having a conversation. I don't know if it was on one of our podcasts or something, having a conversation where it's like there's so many like fake brothers and sisters and fake families and stuff in wrestling, and then you would think that Vic Steamboat was one of those, and he's not.
So, all right. Well, he's still whatever. But no, Shamrock, he was doing different. I think he worked like Oregon or something for a while.
And he worked. I think he worked in like with like the Savoldis and stuff, didn't he?
Probably, yeah.
At one point.
And I know he got in like some shit with like the Nasty Boys, like real life shit with the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, I've definitely heard about that.
Like they fucked him up or whatever, but yeah, I don't know why he would have been.
And PWI, honestly, PWI probably just put him in here because the UFC was becoming a thing and they wanted to put that name in their 500.
Possibly. Yeah, I was going to say, A, I don't know why he would have been ranked at this time, and B, he shouldn't have been, but that's okay.
156, Tatsumi Fujinami. 6'1", 238, 24 years pro, held the IWGP title for several months before losing it to Shinya Hashimoto in May of 94. One of Japan's wrestling greats, Stellar Scorpion Deathlock, former WWF World Junior Heavyweight Champion, has also competed in WCW. I've said before, I say all the time on this show, I am in no way, shape, or form a Japanese wrestling historian because I don't watch a lot of Japanese wrestling. I just don't. It's not that I have anything against it. I just don't. But what I can say is I have, because of the few things that I've seen of him in the past, I have gone down Fujinami wormholes, and that dude was a fucking badass pro wrestler.
He was, man. And it's like, and you'll get this one because you've obviously known me all my life and you kind of know the type of wrestling, just wrestling wise, that I like, and he works that type of style. I like at the end of the day, I like a guy like him or like Dynamite or Dean, just like not, I want to say short, but just like a stocky, kick your ass
A
type
fucking fire
fucking,
hydrant.
yeah. Like that's and like I like a guy that's just, you look at him and you're like, this guy can beat somebody's fucking ass. You know what I mean?
But yeah, like I
Like
said,
if I'm gonna watch pro like wrestling, like sports entertainment or whatever, yeah, I'll watch Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair or whatever. But if I want to watch some fucking wrestling, I'm gonna watch a Fujinami or a Malenko or a Benoit or a Dynamite. That's the type of wrestling I like to watch.
right.
So yeah, I got nothing but love for that guy.
155 is T. Ranchula, 6'5", 295, 8 years pro, the current Steel City Wrestling and American Commonwealth Wrestling heavyweight champion. This giant continues to get better, managed by the cunning Black Widow, whose constant interference has helped Ranchula keep his belts on many occasions. Recently engaged in a violent feud with Cactus Jack, reminiscent of the legendary madman Bruiser Brody. My big question here about T. Ranchula is it Tom, Ted, or Terry Ranchula? Terry Ranchula.
Terry Ranchula.
Tom Ranchula.
I think it's Travis.
Travis Ranchula.
Theodore Ranchula.
It'd be Teddy Ranchula for short.
Teddy Ranchula. Tobias. It's Tobias.
Tobias Ranchula. I don't know why. Like the first one that came to my mind was Terry.
Yeah, I think it's Tobias.
Tobias Ranchula. Number 154 is the Great Sasuke. 5'8", 190, 5 years pro, hottest young Japanese wrestler in Mexico, beat Jushin Liger for the Super J Cup, stars in Michinoku Pro in Extreme Northeast Japan. One of wrestling's best pure flyers. Frequent injuries have hampered his abilities. Poor Sasuke. Taka was better.
Taka had a better attitude.
I personally think Sasuke's overrated.
Yeah,
I always have. He was fine, but Taka was better. I mean, let's be honest.
Taka was better. Sasuke had a better, how do I say? He had a better look. Like his gimmick looked better. Yeah. But like he was full of his own shit. And he was out for himself type of thing. And it's like, I understand, even like looking at the pictures or whatever, why the WWF at the time when they got Taka and Sasuke and whatever, they were like, oh, this might be the guy. And then when you get to meet both of them, you're like, this guy's full of his own fucking shit.
Right.
he's like a Mil Mascaras. It's like, oh, looking at him, you're like, oh, this guy's great, and you read his press or whatever, and then when you get down to it, you're just like, he's not as good as I thought he ever. I don't see it.
Kind of a douchebag.
He's kind of a prick.
Number 153 is Akira Tao. 6'5", 265, 7 years pro. Former sumo wrestler is now excelling in All Japan. Tag team champ with Toshiaki Kawada. Has beaten just about everyone in Japan. Magnificent choke slam. Haven't seen enough of the man to give an opinion, so.
Yeah.
Number 152. Would you like some fresh fruits?
Is it really him?
152, Tommy Cairo.
Hell yeah.
6'3", 257, 4 years pro. The Iron Man feuded with Tommy Dreamer and Sandman in ECW before moving on to the NWA. Defeated Devon Storm in a tournament final for the NWA North American title on June 24th in Williamstown, New Jersey, a top contender for Dan Severn's NWA title. You know what's funny is before we started doing Reliving the Extreme, it wasn't necessarily that I wasn't a fan. I just hadn't paid enough attention to Tommy Cairo. His run in ECW and watching it through the eyes of the show, and then also getting to know him and talk to him, as I did when we were getting ready to do his interview and stuff, and learning about his past and learning about his past with Johnny Rods and how much, student of the business he was and everything. I got to say, I'm a fucking Tommy Cairo fan, man.
I'll tell you what, I know we kind of crack wise and joke around a little bit about it or whatever, but his early babyface run in ECW was good, and it's one of the best fucking heel lines of all time.
Yep.
I'm just out here eating peaches. It's one of the best fucking heel lines of all time. I don't even care if he's not the guy that thought about it. The way he delivered it and the way he sold it, it's fucking great.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he didn't become one of the guys they kept around. I don't
Well,
get
what he told me, and I mean, nothing he told me when we talked is like anything where he told me I couldn't say it. But what he told me when he and I were discussing things like off the air, just hit, because he's one of those guys that, like, I would call him.
I want to have him back on the show eventually, but
same.
Fun, but
he's one of those guys that when I'd call him or when I'd talk to him, it would be like to set up a time to do an interview or set up a time to set something up for doing the interview or to give like an audio test or whatever. And then it would be an hour of Tommy just telling me stories and stuff, like he loves to talk about his career and he loves to talk about wrestling. And from what I understood from everything he and I talked about, it was just a matter of he did not fit into the clique that was ECW. And they didn't want him. They didn't want him pretty much. So he said, well, fuck off then, and I'll just go do something else. But
guess he didn't like to do crank, so good for him.
Number 152, Gorgeous George III. 5'10", 225, 4 years pro, Raleigh, North Carolina native, has an extensive amateur background, has wrestled in both SMW and USWA, had a tryout with the WWF where he was managed by Harvey Whippleman, claims to be the grandson of Gorgeous George, but few believe him, obviously.
It's Maestro.
Yes, this is the Maestro, or Stro, or whatever. Yeah. Shitty.
It's one of my favorite Bobby Heenan things ever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could tell the fans. I know the story, but...
He said, hey, you guys hear that Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Benoit are threatening to leave? Well, the Maestro's threatening to stay.
Yeah, the less said, the better about that guy.
Yeah. He fucking sucked. It was so stupid. Like, there's guys that Russo tried to do something with that I'm like, they were all right. Like if they maybe not have been saddled with that shitty gimmick, they probably would have been able to do something. Like a lot of the MIA guys, obviously like Chavo. Like say something bad about Chavo Guerrero.
Can't.
Can't. Lash LaRue. I actually like Lash LaRue. Just all those different people. He tried to do that shit with Maestro. It's like and fucking Prince Iak. It's like, what the fuck is this?
The only good thing that ever came from the Maestro thing was that it got me to be able to look at Symphony.
Yeah, Ryan Shamrock was hot.
But other than that,
it's trash.
Number 150 is Johnny Smith. 6', 235, with 13 years pro, mainly wrestles for All Japan and in Calgary, feuding with Lance Storm. Held the Calgary North American title for a few weeks, but lost it to Canadian Black Bart. Past tag team partners include the Dynamite
Canadian Black Bart regular Black Bart?
I actually don't know. This is a
That's
piece
what
of,
I'm asking.
This is a piece of trivia I don't know the answer to.
So is it like regular Black Bart and then we have Canadian Black Bart?
It's
Or is
spreading.
Black Bart actually from Canada? Canada?
No, this is like it's
Kind
like
of thing.
not Canadian Black
Canada.
Bart. Not Canadian
Canadian.
Black Bart. It's Canadian Black Bart. So I assume it's a completely different Black Bart, but from Canada. I love it though. It's like, and ladies and gentlemen, introducing in this corner, Canadian Black Bart.
Bart. Like, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Number 149, Jimmy Snuka.
I don't even remember who the last guy was.
No, it was Johnny Smith. It was
I just remember
Smith.
Canadian Johnny Smith, and I hated to gloss over him because I like Johnny Smith.
I did too.
I just didn't remember Canadian Black Bart.
Number 149, Jimmy Snuka. 6', 250, 26 years pro. This cagey veteran still has a devastating flying body press off the top turnbuckle. Regularly competes in independents throughout North America. Fans sometimes ignore his non-aerial skills. Snuka's one of those guys that, like, you think about what a kind of a bastard he was outside the ring, but you can't deny the phenom that he was in the wrestling business.
No, I'll never deny that. But I mean, real life wise, he was a piece of shit. But in the ring and on the camera and everything, he was captivating, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he wouldn't have had what happened to him happen, I don't know if we would have got. It was kind of like what I was saying about Terry Gordy, and it's totally different. But like, if shit would have worked out different, there's a few guys that might have not had the WWF run that they had if it wouldn't have been for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Hogan would have still been Hogan, you know, but would Vince have needed JYD? You know what I mean?
Instead of and imagine if you will, the WWF Intercontinental Championship in 1986 feuded between Randy Savage and Jimmy Snuka.
Yeah.
Not that Tito was bad. Tito was fucking awesome, but imagine Snuka and Savage. Like, how crazy would that shit have been?
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's guys that just, if other guys wouldn't have made life decisions, we maybe wouldn't have got what we got. And I think Snuka's a big guy that you could contribute that to.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, in reality, it very well could have been at WrestleMania 1. I'm not saying, because they wanted celebrities, so I'm not saying Mr. T's not involved, but it may very well have been flip-flopped. It may have been Hogan and Snuka versus Piper and Orndorff with Mr. T on the outside.
Oh, it definitely would have been.
You know?
Definitely would have been.
But you're right. I mean, Hogan was going to happen. That was regardless. Hogan's the one that I don't think is because they always say, oh, it might have they might have went with Snooker, they might have went with Dusty. To me, Hogan is the one thing that's just, it's destined to happen, you know.
Yeah. there's no way Hulk Hogan wasn't going to happen. But Snuka, I've always kind of thought it might. Well, I shouldn't say always, but as I've gotten older, I've always thought that I don't think. I think he would have wound up there, but I don't think JYD would have been what he was if Snuka shit wouldn't have happened. In my opinion.
Number 148 is Mascara Ano 2000. 5'10", 228, 14 years pro. Currently Mexico's IWC heavyweight champion. Beat Pero Aguayo for the belt earlier this year. Mainly a kicker and puncher. Noted for breaking Pepsi bottles over opponents' heads. Has no qualms about retaining his title via losses by disqualification.
I don't know.
He's very much like a Pero. Very much like it's the style of Pero Aguayo, like Mexican wrestler, but just kind of a wild man, you know. I guess that's why he and Pero matched up well. But 147 is King Kong Bundy. 6'4", 446, 19 years pro. A member of Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Corporation in the WWF. Had a brief tenure in the independents before returning to the WWF in 94. Very intimidating, but his skills aren't as sharp as they used to be. I like King Kong Bundy, but buddy, 94, 95 King Kong Bundy in the WWF. Yeah, forget about it. It's rough, buddy.
It's rough. I like King Kong Bundy too. Like, it's funny that he got brought up because, like I told you, I was watching. I was off for Christmas or whatever, so I was just watching some stuff. You know, I was watching Prime Time from like an '86 Prime Time, and it was Bundy versus Tony Atlas, and I was like, man, this is really good. It's easy to forget how good at one point Bundy was. You know what I mean?
Oh, and go back even
kind of
further.
By how he looks and
go back even further like and that. Not the stuff, not the match with Fritz, but go back for even further into World Class and watch his stuff with the Von Erichs and when he was with fucking Gary Hart and stuff. He was, you know, in Skandor Akbar. He was amazing for his size. And like it was funny with Skandor Akbar, when he was with Akbar, he even acted Jersey, you know, because he was with the sleazy manager anyway. So he acted kind of sleazy and yeah, fucking early Bundy's fucking great.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's really easy to forget how fucking good he was. I'm not saying he's like Bam Bam or Vader, but he was fucking good.
Well, we already talked about this act when we talked about Eli Blue. So 146 is Jacob Blue. 145 is Kurosawa, 6'1", 250. The newest member of Colonel Parker's stud stable, has extensive experience wrestling in his native Japan. Broke Hawk's arm when he attacked him after a match at Clash of the Champions 31.
I liked that guy.
I don't know a lot about him otherwise.
I don't either, but I'm just saying, like, his little WCW run or whatever, I enjoyed his character and I enjoyed his work. I don't know a lot about his Japanese stuff or whatever, but if I had to, like, just base him off his brief time in WCW, I'm like, yeah, I liked Kurosawa. I thought he was a fun wrestler. Like, I enjoyed watching him.
Number 140.
Bigger WCW guy than you were, but I liked him.
Number 144 is Mo. 6'1", 260. Mabel's partner in Men on a Mission in the WWF, injured for a while but has come back strong. Briefly held the WWF World Tag Titles with Mabel in 1994. Acted as Mabel's second while injured. Was dubbed Sir Mo by Mabel after Mabel won the 1995 WWF King of the Ring. Hear ye, servants and wenches.
And wenches. It's if you're gonna like book a movie about WWF 93 through 95, it'd be played by the dad from Family Matters. Family Matters. Carl Winslow. That's I forget the real. I think his first name's Reginald. I don't know the fucking dad from Family Matters name, but he said Family Matters. Family Matters. Anyway, Men on a Mission was what it was. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoyed them better as heels, obviously.
I was just gonna say, like, okay, so King Mabel, that whole thing, I see why it didn't draw. He probably shouldn't have been in the world title picture. But for a heel tag team, like, without a silly gimmick or something, those guys had a look and stuff as an effective heel tag team. It just got caught up in the mess. You know what I mean?
If they would have made King Mabel and Sermo a mid-card heel act, it would have been perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute you want to make it a main event world title thing, it's like, nah, that ain't gonna work, brah. And his faces, they were terrible. Like that was bad.
143. We go from Mo at 144 to Jushin Liger at 143. Still the standard by which all aerial wrestlers are judged. Had to vacate the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title in September of 1994 when he broke his ankle. Spent most of the year rehabilitating his ankle, but returned in midsummer. Has held the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title several times. I don't know why that made me laugh so much. I was like,
that's the insanity of pro wrestling.
You can't get more opposites.
It's the insanity of pro wrestling.
From Mo to Liger, it's the insanity of professional wrestling.
Professional wrestling. There's nothing bad to say about Jushin Thunder Liger.
No, and we've talked about him at extent in many of our episodes of the show. One of the greatest of all time to ever do it. Period. End of story. 142 is Pitbull number 1, 6'3", 243, 5 years pro. Combined savagery, easy for me to say, with good technical knowledge, feuding with Raven and Stevie Richards in ECW. Power Slam is one of the most devastating in the sport. Also uses the Frankensteiner, still pursuing the ECW tag team title.
Good old Gary Wolf.
Yeah, and it's funny because Gary Wolf, and again, watching ECW through to its, really watching it through to analyze it for a podcast. I was not a fan of Gary Wolf before Anthony Durante showed up. I wasn't a fan of Gary Wolf as a singles wrestler, but you can't take anything away from them as a tag team. They're a really good tag team.
Yeah, and for like we were talking about earlier with like Emil Mascaris or whatever, for like a territory or a company or whatever, he was one of their guys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like he went all the way through Cabrini, all the way to fucking the pay-per-view. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to give him that for that building and that audience. He was one of their guys.
141 is Billy Gunn, 6'3", 256, 3 years pro. He and brother Bart, the Smoking Guns, won the WWF World Tag Titles from Bob Holly and the Kid in January. Lost the belts to Owen Hart and Yokozuna at WrestleMania 11. Excellent physique. Very popular with female fans. This is totally off topic, but I am currently watching 1995. And
Well, it's kind of off topic because we're talking about 95.
that's true, I guess. But touche. Michael Hayes has just come in as Doc Hendricks, and he's doing Superstars commentary with Vince. And his shit, whenever the fucking smoking guns are brought up or on TV or whatever, he has this thing, and I don't know how long it's gonna last, but it's funny, where he doesn't get their names right. He'll be like, "All right, yeah, we got Billy Bart Gun there. We got Bubba Billy Gun, Bubba Bart, Bubba." He just comes up with like stupid, like goofy combinations of. He'll be like, Hillbilly Bart Gun there. He's in the ring. I don't know. It's just him doing his thing, but it's really funny. But they were a great tag team.
They were, and say what you want to say about the guy later on in his career or whatever. Like, Billy Gunn is what a professional wrestler is supposed to look like.
There is a reason. You can tell who are the really, really great athletes, performers, and probably statesmen in the locker room, because they're the guys that no matter what, Vince or the WWF always tried something with them for years and years and years. Billy Gunn, Glenn Jacobs, they always tried to have something for Billy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether you liked it or not, whether it was that the silly the one Billy Gunn or whatever, they always tried to have something for him. And to his credit, at his age right now, he looks better than like 50% of the actual young wrestlers that are wrestling.
Yeah. I have nothing bad to say about Billy at all. I don't know if we've already talked about Bart, but I'd put Bart in that same list too.
Yeah, Bart just
tag team, they were really good.
Mm-hmm. Bart just didn't have Billy's charisma,
Yeah.
But yeah, they were in fact a really, really good tag team. Just their legacy is hindered by the fact that they were the top tag team during that really down period. It is what it is.
They're the tag team equivalent of Diesel.
Mm-hmm. See here, we got time for a couple more. 140 is Brian Armstrong, 6'4", 243 years pro. The Roadie served most of the year as Jeff Jarrett's interfering sidekick. Showed excellent wrestling skills in a feud against the Kid in the WWF. Left the WWF after a dispute with officials and is now wrestling in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. The youngest of the Armstrong clan, participated in Operation Desert Storm. He says to this day that he regrets ever walking out with Jeff Jarrett, because he had to eat so much crow, he's like, why did I listen to him? Why did I walk out with him? I should have just stuck around. They would have put me over. It's like, Jeff Jarrett was a fucking phony.
But it might have also helped him though too. At the end of the day, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's a double-edged sword on that aspect. But if they would have gave him that real Double J thing right in 95, would he have made it to they give him that in 95? Would he have been able to make it to 96, 97 with that gimmick without getting shit canned?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I see your point.
But you give him that in 96, he's got he'll make it to 97 with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but
it does. But I see his point too. His point is, I listened to Jeff because I, was fresh in the biz or whatever. I listened to Jeff and he had his problems, and he's probably looking at it as I could have stayed and made more money. You know what I mean? And not
Yeah.
not had to work
But
my
how
way
much
back.
more fucking money did you make leaving?
Right.
That's where I'd look at it. Like, if I'm that guy, if I'm Brian James, I'd look at it kind of that way too. Like, hindsight, would I have wound up like a Rad Radford and a Freddie Joe Floyd
Mm-hmm.
and not been able to become a Road Dogg Jesse James?
Alex the Pug Porto.
Yeah. Am I that guy if I stick around? So it's a double-edged thing. And now I think he's the live event guy. So he's probably the third ranked guy in the fucking company, I would
Yeah.
think.
All right, we got time for two more.
All right.
139 is Pitbull number 2. Classic brawler, teammate of Pitbull 1, extremely powerful, shows no mercy to opponents, trains with heavy bag like a boxer to get his fists as hard as possible, can KO opponents with crushing headbutts. Intimidating looking motherfucker, and
If he
I
would
think
have been a junkie, I think he would have been a big deal.
much better than he gets credit for being.
Yeah.
For a big guy. Like I said, he just, to me, I look at Pitbull 2 and I'm like, that's a scary looking son of a bitch. And then I see what he does. And I'm like, that's a scary son of a bitch.
Yeah. Get that guy clean. He's a huge star in either company.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to round it out with 138. Number 138 in the PWI 500 from 1995 is Johnny Gunn. Sincerely, 6'3", 255, 10 years pro, popular veteran, has formed a successful team with Jim Powers in the AWF, continues to feud with King Kalua in many East Coast independents, noted for strength, stamina, and all-around wrestling ability. Brutal feud with Crash the Terminator continues in Pennsylvania Championship Wrestling. Oh, Johnny Gunn, Sal Sincere, whatever you want to call him. He's one of those guys that was around forever, but never made an impact ever.
He didn't, and he's one of those guys too that when you look at him, you're like, Like if you're a wrestling promoter and Johnny Gunn walked the door, you'd probably be like, oh, this guy might be something. And then you're like, he looks good. You know, he can probably play the part a little bit, but he had no.
Like when you take here, let me put it this way: when you take the guys, let's just take the guys you can compare him to. Take the guys like Paul Roma, Jim Powers. Who else?
I wouldn't compare him to Paul Roma because Paul Roma had charisma.
All right, so Jim Powers. She takes Tom
Joey
Zank.
Maggs, Tom Zank.
So you take that type of guy. Honestly, Johnny Gunn's the lesser of all of them.
Yeah.
Of a guy with that look and that,
I thought you were I thought you were going a different direction. So yeah, I'd put Roma in there too. Like I thought you were going to try to say Paul Roma didn't have charisma because Tom Zank.
No. I was just talking about that look and that kind of that feel to their character or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, you're the bottom of that.
So I guess we decided to end the show by shitting on Johnny Gunn this week. Yeah. But his career already did that for us, so.
He also fucking stole Del Welk's gimmick and never paid him properly for it, so fuck him.
Yeah. So I do have some closing things I want to discuss at the end of this week's show. Is first of all, I want to thank all of you for your support through 2024. I have to say, from a personal standpoint, for me, to be honest, 2025 or 2024 has been the worst fucking year of my life. All right.
2024 has sucked.
2024 has been garbage. Okay. So 2025 can only be better. And we hope you continue to listen. And I've tried to keep my cheery disposition and our discussions here in the podcast. And I think we've done well considering everything that's gone on in our personal lives this year. But to switch to a personal life of someone else that is part of our family here at WNR, somebody that Aaron and I have known for fucking years. I've known this dude for 20 years now. And he's been a part of our podcasts in the past. You don't hear him very much anymore just because, it is what it is, but he's still a part of our WNR family and still a part of my circle of people. Our friend Chris Wood last week lost his mom, Connie. And Connie was like I liked Connie. Connie she was a feisty lady. And she gave Chris a bunch of shit, which I always thought was fun. But I want to say rest in peace to her, and everybody send your well wishes out to Christopher Wood, our buddy, for losing his mom. Chris, we're here for you, man. And he does have a GoFundMe out there. If you can check that out, because he found out his mom didn't have the insurance that was needed and stuff for the expenses for everything. So please do contribute to that if you can. I'm gonna repost it or share it in our group. But I just wanted to let that be known. Everybody keep Chris in your thoughts. Losing your mom, losing anybody. We lost our grandma that we were very close with this year. So losing somebody like that you're close with, that means a lot to you, really sucks. And I just wanted to put that out there for Chris. That being said, to bring it back up, as I brought the show down at the end there, next week we will continue discussing the PWI 500 from 1995. And of course, join us again this week. Like I said, Reliving the Extremes coming back this week too. So check that out. Aaron, do you have any parting words for our listeners as we exit 2024 and hope for a better year in 2025?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've, as always, tried to put forth my cheery disposition as well.
Did you say a cherry deposition?
Cherry deposition. I'm kidding. But 2024 has sucked, but 2025, hopefully it's going to be better. And I know it will be. And one of the better ways that you guys can do that is continue listening to our fun shows, Reliving the Extreme, the We Can't Wrestle podcast, and rate, review, do all that stuff to help us get it up the food chain. And for everybody that has listened, thank you. And we have the Hall of Fame coming up, so there might be some different voices on here, which I'm looking forward to. And the last thing I'll say is, if you guys have any suggestions or anything that you would like us to talk about on either one of the shows, don't be afraid to put that out there. Just suggest it, comment on it, whatever. We just want to make the shows better going into 2025.
Yeah, and I do want to say that, speaking of support, I mentioned on Reliving the Extreme the other day, or whenever last time we recorded that, but this fella actually doesn't really comment on Reliving the Extreme. I don't know if he doesn't listen to it or what, but as you all know, we're on YouTube. The shows are on YouTube as soon as they come out on the podcast platforms now. And I want to give a shout out here on this show because he comments like, Aaron, you should go to the YouTube page and look at the comments. Like Rigamus11, whoever you are, good sir. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your comments on our YouTube page. Thank you for your support. Like we did the dream rosters, right? Like a while back.
Yeah, did he tell you mine was better?
No, he actually built his own and gave us stories and stuff and like really interacted with the show. So you should go look at that and
all right.
Appreciate it. But Rigamus11, whoever you are, thank you.
Thanks, Rigmarole. What did he say his name was?
Yo, Rigmarole, you.
Yo, Rigmarole. Appreciate it, buddy.
But anyway, we're going to sign off now. I got to pee. It's time to go. We'll see you next week, everybody. Happy New Year, because we won't see you till after the New Year. So Happy New Year to all of our listeners, all of our supporters. And thanks for listening once again to the We Can't Wrestle podcast.